is showtime in the big city. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Our summer series continues. And have I ever said this before? Oh, we got a dandy for you.
No,
I mean,
never.
First time I've said
ever.
that?
First.
Yeah. I got a dandy. We got a dandy. He's back. It's his annual appearance. It's kind of like those actors that go and do summer stock. Like they appear, they just show up in the summer. Mike Florio of ProFootballTalk.com is our special guest. This is going to be fun. We haven't even, as you know, no pre-show notes, no pre-show meetings, no nothing. It's going to be good.
You missed the meeting. We had a Brad.
Oh, you
had
did?
a meeting, yeah.
I think I missed last year. Was I here last year? I think we weren't able to line it up last year.
I thought you were here for something last year.
I don't
Did
remember.
I come up last summer?
You may have.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just great to have you with us.
It's great to be here.
You've changed. I mean,
I'm
the
used to
first
you
time you
reading-
came, you had no security people.
Wait a minute.
Now 3 security guys, Bobby, Tommy,
Hey,
and Luigi.
Is the podcast okay? Is everything okay? Is everything fine?
Yeah, you're wondering about sponsors?
I'm wondering. You usually do a 5-minute read before we even start.
Interesting you bring that up. 3 Guys is brought to us by Jan Dills, attorneys at law. They won't take no for an answer. By Comax Business Systems, keeping West Virginia's business data safe, secure, and efficient for 25 years. By Gomart. Get a Gomart rewards card and immediately begin saving on your food and fuel. Go to Gomart.com for details. By Lou Wendell Marine Sales in St. Albans. Well, they sell family fun. Visit LouWendellMarineSales.com. By Tudor's Biscuit World, start your day the homemade way. What were you saying?
Well, wait a minute. Excuse me. You got any sponsors on that TV show you do?
No. I don't know why we're still on the air. Frankly,
I disagree.
Let me tell you
I love
something.
Tudor's
We're
Biscuits.
capitalists here. We're capitalists.
Not to be specific
Yeah, go ahead.
for one sponsor.
Sure.
And alienate the others, but
Yeah.
I love me some Tudor's biscuits.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard not to. The question we often have on this show is, at your height of hunger, could you eat 2?
Oh yeah, I've eaten 2 before.
Bang,
I've done it.
Bang, bang.
Yeah.
One
Bang, bang.
after the other.
Yes.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Not 2 in one day, 2 consecutively.
Yeah. We used to stop there after church.
Right.
Years ago when I actually went to church. That's a different discussion
Just down
altogether.
here or that up there? We're talking Wheeling or are we talking home?
No, down
Okay.
in Bridgeport.
Okay.
And there's been a Tudor's over by or inside the Go-Mart
Mm-hmm. There you go.
on the edge
Go-Mart.
of...
Inside the Go-Mart.
We call that a wonderful marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also there was a pizza place in there too. I don't know if it's still there. Gino's Pizza used to be
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I don't know if it's still there. I haven't been over there in a
Gino's
while. We don't
and
live on that
Tudor's.
side of town anymore.
Sure.
Also
sure.
a video rental.
But we would go to church and we'd get the Tudor's biscuits and then come home and I would. I've been known to eat 2 of them.
What's your pick when you
Just
go in?
egg and bacon, no cheese, no anything else. I'm good with egg and bacon on the biscuit.
Man, I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
See, no cheese. He'd be good with the 3 Guys biscuit, where you don't know if you're getting cheese or not.
That's
Until
ours.
you
That's
order.
right.
We're trying to get an item named
Why don't
after
we have
us
that yet?
there. They still don't have that done.
I know.
Efforting.
So how are you?
Good. Better than good. Good is the perfunctory answer.
I was surprised
It's
you were.
socially acceptable to just say I'm good. Because
Yeah,
nobody really cares. Haven't you noticed that when you ask somebody how are you, you just say it because that's the social convention. Nobody really cares.
No, I agree with you.
Wait. Except, if you're just transacting, okay, you might say, I'm good, I'm well. But if you have, you might say, how are you doing? You might say, I've had some things. And you go, okay, well, tell me. So
All right, how much time do we have?
I don't know that we wanted him to do that in this setting, though, did we? We wanted him to say good, and now I want to ask about Aaron Rodgers. Like, I didn't want him to tell me what was wrong. All due respect, of course.
How often? I was surprised you were wearing a WV shirt. How often do you crack a WV emblemed shirt?
My wardrobe approach when I'm at home.
Right.
We were talking earlier about the Football Night in America.
Mm-hmm.
I basically wear what's in the dressing room when I show up to get ready for the show, and whatever's there, that's it. At home, I have one rule: the closest and the cleanest. So,
Okay.
CC.
if it's right there, and if I can tell, quick nasal inspection. If it's fresh from the laundry, then
You're in.
that's today's. But I had to do something WVU for you.
Well, we appreciate it.
I mean-
No. We appreciate it, and you've always been. You've always been up front. Yeah, your fandom of West Virginia to me is like extremely real. Like you don't have fanaticism in you. you like them, you enjoy them, but at the same time, you keep it very, very real.
It's the only thing we truly have. I remember, and this may be one of the reasons why I never became a Steelers fan, even though I grew up in Wheeling, 60 miles from Pittsburgh. And when I discovered the NFL on December 23, 1972, the Immaculate Reception game, and realized this is a pretty big deal, I resisted the Steelers. And I think one of the reasons I resisted the Steelers is I was aware of the whole West Virginia Pitt thing. Like, why do we love the Steelers if we hate Pitt? That makes no sense to me. West Virginia is the only uniquely West Virginia thing that we have. We're otherwise glomming onto whatever is geographically convenient. If you're in the southern part of the state, what? Are there Bengals fans down there? I think there's Bengals fans
Browns
down there.
in Charleston,
right? You've got the Washington fans in the Panhandle. So, I never felt compelled by NFL geography because we don't have a team. This is all we have. And if you're going to live here, if you're from here,
sure.
I don't know why anybody wouldn't be. I remember arguing with people in Wheeling in December of 1988, Wheeling residents who were all in Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
In advance of the Fiesta Bowl. And I was pissed.
Sure.
It's like, Notre Dame's won their championships. Notre Dame's always going to be Notre Dame. This is our chance. This may be our only shot. Like, you got to set that aside. You're a West Virginian. You got to set that aside.
Yeah.
And there are Ohio State fans up there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's easy. I mean, I was born in Ohio. I mean, it'd be easy to say, oh, yeah, Ohio State. But, you know, you are a product of where you grew up and where you've lived most of your life. And for me, that's here.
Yeah. The Wheeling area geographically, when it comes to fandom, I think is the most, what's the word? It's this cosmopolitan thing. Like you said, because of the heavy Catholic faith in the Wheeling area, that Notre Dame thing is huge for them. Huge for them.
Yep.
And some people just don't vacillate from that.
That's true.
Yeah, it's
I think you're right. No, I had 12 years of Catholic school, and still, there's a point where that ends.
Yeah, you're out. You're out. Mountaineer stuff. Okay. You're in your sabbatical from your daily show that you do.
And it's funny because I can always spot the people who have no idea what I do. When after the Super Bowl,
they ask you what you do.
Oh, you got some time off now. What are you going to do for the next 6 months? It's like, well, how long do you have?
Yeah.
We shut down our daily show during the slow part of the NFL calendar, middle of June to the end of July. And I still do, like before I left, I did our separate podcast. It's called PFTPM. I did 45 minutes solo, went over some of the news of the day, because there's always news, answered some questions. I'll do that every day, but it's looser, it's more casual. You don't have to worry about the clock, you don't have to worry about breaks.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody to throw to.
Yeah.
I just talk as long as I want to talk. When I'm done, I'm done, and then we have fresh video we can put on the website. I mean, that's the only reason I do it. I want to have fresh video content that can be connected to the stories that we have on the website, because every story on the website now has a video. And if I didn't do anything for 6 weeks, we'd be running the same damn videos from mid-June in late July. So I need to do it. It's just, I don't have to get up at 6. I'm not tied to the show. I can get a little more sleep. I just have it's a looser feel, but it's still nonstop, especially because I load up the 6 weeks with all the stuff I don't have time to do from the end of July until, the middle part of June.
To me, I love your evolution. Like you just said, I just went in and did a podcast, did it by myself, went 45 minutes. Like I remember when you didn't do any spoken word whatsoever. So think about this. Now you host hours, hundreds and thousands of hours a year, but that's not where you had any base training whatsoever. We've documented well on this show, your educational background, engineering, law, and then it was writing, and now just like, dude, I mean, you ever put into perspective, now Hoppy can certainly attest to this, doing 2 hours, doing 45 minutes by yourself, that's big boy.
But it's like anything else, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
I understand.
And for me, the gateway was being the call-in guest on a show. First place I ever did was WGR 550 in Buffalo. Sure. I would do something every week back in 2000, after I stumbled into the business. And one thing I noticed, because I was practicing law at the time, and when you practice law, you have to get up and speak extemporaneously in front of a judge. And you have different settings where you have to be on and you have to make sense. And one thing I learned is the more I did that radio, the better it made me when it was time to do the real job.
Yeah.
Because you're just talking and there's no net and there's no do-over when it's live radio. So you do that over and over and over again, and then you get to a point where you're in the other chair and you do that over and over and over again, and you get to a point where you could talk about anything for any amount of time. Like the Cory Booker 25-hour filibuster, I could do that. If I had a catheter, I could do that. And a diaper, I could do that. I could talk about anything for 25 hours because you just have an idea and you just go. And it's just stream of consciousness, but you've learned how, and you know this, any of you guys, you're doing speaking for a living, you learn how to use your voice as an instrument, you learn how to articulate your thoughts in a semi-cogent way, and you just go.
But you gotta have content. You can't just talk. So what you do, I think you're diminishing.
He's diminishing. Diminisher.
The significance of what you're doing, because if you don't have content, you're just a guy talking.
But the content comes from
the research.
And there's no research. It's constant.
Yeah.
What's the next story? What's the next story? That's my workflow. I sit down at my desk. I get my keyboard. What's the next story? What's going on in the NFL? What information do I have that I haven't disseminated yet? I keep a running list of all the stories I want to get to. Okay, I got one done. What's next? And I never have any prep for any show other than Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football is different, but the weekday show, you just talk about the stuff you've been writing about, because if you're clued into what the top stories are in the NFL at the website, good job swallowing that yawn, by the way. That was very impressive.
What do you do?
Well, he
said I swallowed it. I didn't
Very
swallow
good.
it.
Very well done. Yes,
I'm
you
just
did. Yes, you
mesmerized.
did.
I'm just
no,
mesmerized
you swallowed
by
a
you.
yawn. But anyway, I lost my train of thought, which I never do. It's easy to
It's what you're doing.
It's easy
You're
to
just regurgitating what you've been working on.
There's nothing to prep. It's all the stuff you've been thinking about, writing about,
100%.
talking about, and you just
agree.
go.
Do you still
and a lot of
prefer
the- a lot of
to
stories-
write versus talk, though, still?
It doesn't matter. Now, when you talk and you're on all the time and you have to watch what you're saying all the time, and a podcast, a true podcast without a video component, of course, they all have a video component now because you can monetize the video component. But a true podcast
Wait,
is
you
easier. Yeah. Well, in
Breaking
theory,
news from Florio.
in theory.
here. Somebody get on
Wait
Write
a
that
minute.
one down.
Wait now, Tony. How does
get on
our
that.
thing
But
work?
when the
Brandon?
camera, when there's a camera always on you, like you have to,
Oh,
you have to make facial expressions that go with what you're saying, and you have to, not stick your finger in your ear, up your nose, or whatever, clean out your teeth in the middle of the thing. So that adds a different element to it. But that concept of being on, nonstop, and you know this, you get used to it after a few minutes, even if you don't feel like doing it today. Once the light goes on, off you go. Yeah. It's easier to just sit and type and move on to the next story. That's easy. That's nothing. I could do that in my sleep. Like, I would never stop doing what I do, because what else would I do? Like, I come to my office, I sit down, I turn on the TV. Well, I'm going to sit there and just watch the TV? No. I just boom, boom, boom. And next story, boom, next story. And you just, after 25 years, it's like breathing.
Are you writing in the barn? Is that where you write?
No, I go to the barn to write fiction. I do all of my work in my office at my house.
Mike, I still think you're soft pedaling your accomplishment in what you do, because you still got to show up, you still got to read, you still got to research, you still got to report, and you still got to write. I mean, so I understand it feels like breathing to you, but there's a lot that goes in to be able to do it that way.
Sure. Sometimes it makes you late for scheduled
Well, that's true. I'm
podcasts.
sorry.
Sometimes you're supposed to be at a
I had
certain
a phone
place
call.
Or maybe
at
we're
a certain
I had
time.
a phone call. I could not. I'm sorry. I am sorry.
Maybe
I
you're
was
supposed
late.
to be somewhere and you don't show up on time.
Maybe we're just different because I spent years writing a daily commentary and doing a 2-hour show, and I was obsessed with preparation. And when I was writing, it felt like sometimes that I was like great writers or artists, I was like laying blocks. It was not always easy. And if I came up with a good line like once a week, I thought that's a good line. And lots of times it's just like it's a struggle.
So here's what I would say. He's like a finishing carpenter. You're more of a framer.
Yeah, I'm doing the studs.
You're just bringing in the two. You're putting the wood together, but he's kind of like into the detail work.
I think when you get to the point where, and I try to do an estimate from time to time, 25 million words written in 25 years. I don't know. It's an ungodly amount. I'm surprised my fingers and my wrists are still properly functional.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I was starting to feel something in my thumb and my wrist, and it went away. But it's like, this is gonna be a problem because I've never had this. I can't do my work if I can't.
Right.
But through that repetition, every day, nonstop, over and over and over again for weeks and months and years, you get to a point where I never, ever, ever have writer's block in anything.
How about that?
I just sit down and I go. And it might be the product of a hyperactive brain,
Right.
but at the same time, it allows me to create, I guess an amount of content that would seem objectively unfathomable. But for me, it's just, it's like breathing. And that's the product of years and years and years of doing it.
Do you ever just stop, though, and do nothing, one? Or two, do you ever read for your own enjoyment?
I never stop and do nothing. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story before. You get to do this so many times, you forget how many stories you've told, which means if you've forgotten them, there's a chance. Like, does your wife ever say, I don't want to wear this again. I don't remember if I wore this.
Right.
Do I wear it? Well, if you don't remember, how's anybody else going to remember? Like, if I don't remember telling you the story, then you probably forget it too. But deep-seated psychological injury / boost. 10 years old, playing grade school football at St. Michael's in Wheeling, West Virginia.
Okay.
I was lazy. Didn't want to work.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't want to run. Wanted to stand around.
You had a husky body build back
Husky,
then?
very husky. That was the word, though. We had our own clothes.
There's a line of clothes.
We had husky.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you stood around, and if the coach noticed you standing around, back in those days, it was socially acceptable to put a foot into someone's ass. I'm not saying I condone it. I'm not saying we should spin the clock back to those days.
Right.
But I will tell you,
Yeah.
from having a foot placed in my ass a sufficient number of times, it took a few.
Multiple.
Took a few. It wasn't one.
Yeah.
But at one point, after that foot hit my ass, something in my brain said, you're never standing still ever again in your life.
Do you remember whose foot that was?
Oh, yeah.
What was his name?
Bill Book.
Bill Book kicked you in the ass.
Kicked me in the ass enough times that it caused something in me to wake up.
Rewired your brain, apparently.
How about
And I
maybe that's where it is.
still think about that now. Like, thank you. No matter what is going on, I can't just. And my wife's the same way too. So we both influence each other.
That's a hell of a house.
Got to accomplish something every day. Got to be doing something all the time. Now we will a few nights a week. We haven't in a while though. It's been a busy couple of weeks. You shut down for a couple of hours and find something to watch on TV. But nowadays, the process of finding something to watch on TV is as much work.
It can be.
That is
Right?
your job.
Like if you have 2 hours budgeted to watch a show, you spend an hour trying to figure out, and then it's a negotiation. Mm-hmm. Which one do you want? Which one do I want?
Back and
are
forth.
you really going to watch this, or are
Right.
you like? I don't want you to pretend you care, and I don't want to pretend I care. Like, let's find something we really want to watch.
like
But
this.
anyway, that's
Yeah.
the only time that I truly shut it down. But even then, I mean, we've all been corrupted and rewired by the device that
But
we
you
carry
don't
everywhere.
read on your own as much as you
I
write.
read some. Yeah, I read some.
Like fiction.
I read some fiction. I read some nonfiction. I've got like 3 books going right now. I need to, you've got to finish one and get to the other one. And I like to do one at a time. I don't like having different threads of books because they get forgotten very easily. But I like to do that. It has to be good. I hate reading a book that is boring. And I work that into my approach to what I write because I think the biggest obligation for anyone who writes is to write something that holds the attention of the reader. And I hate when I'm 20% of the way through a book and I'm saying, where the hell is this going? And why am I reading it? And then you feel compelled to finish
you want to
because
finish.
you spent the $8.99 for the book.
I get it.
So you got to get your money's worth. And there was one that it took me like 4 months to finally finish it. When I finally finished, it's like, what the hell did I just read? It was
wasted
supposed to
your
be a
time.
good book. Like
Yeah.
all these people say it's a great book. It's like, what
Right.
am I missing?
Yeah. Will you read the House Settlement?
No.
Well, you won't read the House Settlement.
I'll pick up what I need from
Mm-hmm. Okay.
after others read it. Because college stuff isn't directly in our...
I get it. Will you
But-
read the collective bargaining agreement? Do you know the CBA?
I know how to find what I need in the CB. I know how to navigate it.
Yeah.
I use it at least 2 or 3 times a week. Pull it up. Oh, that's what I'm looking for. That clause. And I'll learn something new. I learned something last week that I didn't know about the process for re-entering the draft. Shadur Sanders, the Bengals defensive end, there's an impasse between him and the team about a very obscure, esoteric contractual term, but both sides are dug in. What are his options? Well, I went to the CBA, I found the provision, and it's like, you can go, and I think this could happen at some point. And the biggest story from a traffic standpoint that we ever had on PFT was posted the Friday night of the draft when Shadur Sanders slipped through round 2 into round 3. And I'd been thinking, when you consider that all of these rules that the NCAA has put in place, they are all antitrust violations. All of the independent businesses came together. All of the universities are independent businesses. This is the easiest way to explain it. They're all independent businesses, and they come together under this phony umbrella of the NCAA to make these rules that allow all of them to say, sorry, we'd love to pay you, but we can't. It's an NCAA rule. It's a collective action by the universities to come together and suppress the labor market. So every rule is potentially an antitrust violation. So the rule that if I declare for the draft and I don't like where I was drafted, I haven't signed a contract, I can't go back to school. Why can't I go back? Why can't I go back? I haven't signed a contract.
Right.
Why can't I go back? So we put out there this idea that at some point Shadur Sanders has to say, I can just go back at Colorado, or I could go somewhere else, go play at North Carolina with Bill Belichick and get his seal of approval. Maybe I'll get drafted a lot higher next year. That was our biggest story ever. So anyway, that was one of the things I looked into with Shadur Sanders. If you do that after you've been drafted, if you go back to school, that team still holds your rights until the moment you re-enter, until you come back. They still hold your rights through that same draft. It will be as if they drafted you, let's say round 5, the Browns. If he had gone back to Colorado next year, it would have been as if the Browns had taken him in round 5. So the team doesn't lose the rights. The only way the team loses the rights is if the player sits out the entire year and does nothing. Then that player re-enters the draft the next year. So that's an example of, I need to know something,
Sure.
I know where to find it, I found it, and I learned something I didn't know.
Yeah.
Hey, get into his short story and tell the story.
Excuse me?
Would you get
Did you say read the Jan Dills Attorneys at Law commercial? Is that what you said?
Yes, I did. Would you please do that?
Mike's a former practicing attorney and a darn good one at that. Was most of your stuff employment law?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Well, Jan doesn't do that. Jan Dills Attorneys at Law, they specialize in both Social Security disability benefits and military disability benefits. If you or someone that you know has those types of needs, then go to the people that do it every single day, those that are trained, especially in the Social Security space. Did you know 88% of Social Security disability benefit claims are rejected on the first attempt?
I did not know that.
That's why Jan Dills Attorneys at Law says go to them first, and you will have a much, much better chance of getting what you want to hear. So, Social Security disability benefits and military disability benefits, Jan Dills Attorneys at Law. We believe in a great deal of hydration on this program. I've been worried about those guys down there for a while. Comax Business Systems now has these water machines, hot water, cold water, and ice cubes, along with their fine line of other business equipment. They've got their stuff in 55 of our 55 counties. You can visit comaxwv.com, comaxwv.com. Tell them, hey, I'm thirsty. I need a water machine, either hot or cold. They got it for you at comaxwv.com.
Get 100 phone lines, too, if you want, can't you?
Oh, you could get
Along with
1,000
your cold
you could get
water.
1,000 phone lines.
Yeah.
As a kidney stone survivor, I will say hydration
Absolutely.
is very
I
important.
didn't know you had those.
Just one.
Hurt?
It was awful. It hit me in Connecticut
Oh,
on a
boy.
Saturday night
Oh, no.
in advance of a full workday
Ugh.
at NBC. And I knew a day or two in advance something wasn't right, but I didn't
Right.
know what it was. And it was about 3:30 a.m. Saturday night. Woke up, nature called, and I got up and I started walking around. It's like, how to pull a muscle? Like, how
Oh,
to pull a muscle in you?
yeah.
Like, how do I?
Flexor or
Like,
something.
what did I do? And I started walking around the hotel room, and it's like, it's not getting any better. And just like all of a sudden, it was
Oh.
excruciating. And while you're in that state of pain that you've never before experienced in your life,
Right.
you have to figure out, what do I do?
Who do you call?
I'm alone.
You're not in Bridgeport.
Where do I go?
Mm-hmm.
And I refuse to be ambulance guy.
Mhm.
Maybe in 10 years, but for now, I'm not going to be
No.
ambulance guy. I'm
No
not going to be
ride.
911 guy for something like that. I'll find a way. So it was get an Uber, middle of the night, find a hospital. And I walked in, And I was sweating profusely. And they stopped me at the desk and they wanted to get my information. It's like, can we do this later?
I'm dying.
I'm dying. And one of the security guards recognized me and they were like, he's fine. Take care of him.
He can cover it.
And they couldn't, because one of the first things is they think you're having a heart attack. So they slap on I was so sweaty they wouldn't stick.
Oh man, that's a lot of wetness there.
Yeah, it was bad. And they gave me morphine.
Yeah.
That didn't work. They gave me Toradol. That's the pain reliever of choice for the NFL play. I know why. That works.
Takes it out there a little bit.
It passed through the spot. There's one spot where it causes the most discomfort as the kidney empties into the ureter. They showed me it passed. I made it to work.
Wow.
Work the next day. 3 hours later, I was perfectly fine. It was like it never even happened. It was so weird. It was such an intense, awful experience. 3 hours later, it's like it never happened. And I hope it never happens again. I seriously would not wish that on anyone. And my sister-in-law says it hurts worse than childbirth.
That's what they say. So just think about that. Once again, the NFL saved your ass. That security guy wouldn't know who you are. You'd still be sitting out there trying to get.
That's true.
You have your insurance card?
I wouldn't have been alone in a hotel room in Connecticut, but that's right. That helped.
Who's your next of kin? Can you sign this here?
Is the NFL as healthy as it's ever been?
Yes. But could it be healthier? Could it do better? They're so obsessed with expanding internationally. I feel like there's still meat on the bone domestically. Every year when the Super Bowl ratings come out, this year it was 133 million.
Right.
What the hell are the other 250 million people in the country doing during those 4 hours? You're getting 1 out of 3 people watching the Super Bowl. So I feel like they could do more to capture more Americans who aren't paying attention. But they want, I think, to get that virus, that thing that made us all love football. You introduce that to other cultures. Flag football is a big part of that now. Because it's one thing to have a local tackle football 11-on-11 league with all the equipment in some foreign country. It's another thing to have flag football. Flag football is easy. Flag football is the closest thing to basically basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes something that's easy to participate in. Soccer, you just give me a ball. Give me a ball and we'll kick it around. Give me a ball and we'll throw it around. And I think that is part of this longer-term obsession. And I really do think it's an obsession by the NFL to take the product they currently have and get more people hooked on it around the world. But yeah, they had a goal. They've had a goal for years now of $25 billion in annual revenue by 2027, and they're on track to hit it. And it's amazing. When they first said it, I said, it's never going to happen. And they're on track to get there.
It's amazing when you think where it was.
I remember in the 70s, because I was as much, if not more, of a baseball fan in the early 70s.
Really?
Loved the Pirates. Would sit there, with a bowl of Frosted Flakes, reading the box scores every day, trying to figure out what they meant.
Yeah.
You go through that realization when you're a kid and you start figuring out what the columns mean and what ERA means and all this different stuff. And that to me was as exciting, and it lasted longer. Football does, it's 1 day a week. Back then it was Sunday and Monday night. 2 windows on Sunday afternoon and Monday night. That was it. Every once in a while they do a Thursday night game because they were trying to avoid competing head-to-head with the World Series. Now they just laugh at the World Series. But back then, baseball was clearly number one. Football was down there with basketball and hockey. And football kind of emerged as number two. But I think the public at large, the average person, would have been stunned by the idea that the NFL is going to overtake baseball. And the NFL overtook it and left it in the dust.
Mike, I think maybe one of the seminal moments of that was I was a big fan of the old AFL and watched a lot of which played on Saturday a lot. And there was interest in that. And the NFL was forced to merge because the AFL was gaining in popularity and Joe Namath signs with the Jets. To me, that was a seminal moment of expanding interest nationwide in NFL. Agree? I
agree with you completely. And in hindsight, the fact that the NFL would even do that merger shows you how seriously the NFL perceived that threat, that they were going to get overtaken by the AFL if they didn't find a solution and come together. And that's really what helped the NFL explode. Between TV, the 1958 championship game where I think it burst onto the American consciousness with the overtime game between the Colts and the Giants, and then the merger, that changed everything. And that just And NFL Films, too. NFL Films was the
Yep.
prime vehicle for indoctrinating America's youth. There was no Madden. You got to see a couple of games a week if you were lucky. It was the Harry Callis, John Facenda, slow motion. That created a mythology, and it put the NFL on a pedestal. People say to me, well, you hate the NFL. Why do you hate the NFL? I was like, I don't hate the NFL. I love the NFL. I love the NFL enough to say, here's what they're doing wrong. Here's where they're falling short. Here's where they need to improve. And I'm just trying to get them to live up to the standard that they convinced me they occupy based upon all that stuff from the NFL Films products of the early 70s.
That's a wonderful point because everyone relates to story, right? We all go to story, and that's what NFL Films was. Mm-hmm. That was story, and that's how we grew up, listening to those stories, right?
And they did a great job of taking what would otherwise seem mundane and finding some thread. Steve Sable was excellent at that. Ed Sable, the founder, they did a great job. Ed Sable's in the Hall of Fame, and he deserves that spot. The real Hall of Fame, not the separate awards that aren't real. You don't get a bust. You just get your name on a plaque. He's got a bust in the Hall of Fame for what he did with NFL Films.
So speaking of stories, how long will we have Hard Knocks type programming? I can't imagine anybody else wants to be on camera divulging that stuff, which has been, I think, great programming over the years. Talking about bringing people on board, but now it seems like, why would you, I mean, I know they're forced to an extent. Why would you agree to do that now?
No, they're forced to. The Bills didn't want to do it this year. They have to do it. When it's the preseason Hard Knocks, there's a formula that's gotten looser. It's easier now. The pool of teams every year that can get the tap on the shoulder that you're doing it is bigger than ever before. And they do the in-season Hard Knocks now where they take all 4 teams from one division. They did it with the AFC North last year. They're doing, I can't remember who they're doing this year. They're doing the NFC East this year. I think it's the NFC East this year. But they're taking all 4 teams, and you have no say. You have no choice in that. The only thing where they give you an option is for the off-season Hard Knocks that the Giants did last year. And no one is ever going to agree to do it because the Giants, that was like the biggest unforced error in the history of NFL broadcasting, that the Giants laid out there their thinking with Saquon Barkley, their internal deliberations where you have one of the guys in the room like, are you sure? Are we sure that this is really the right thing to do to let this guy go? And it just created fodder for criticizing the Giants all year long, and they couldn't find anybody to do it this year. They were going to do North Carolina. Bill Belichick, first year there is Hard Knocks until that fell through. No NFL team will touch that.
Fascinating stuff.
But they're going to keep doing it because it's just, number one, it's revenue, and number two, it just keeps, it's everywhere now. It's everywhere. Every team has their own in-house media production. The content, and that's what makes it hard to compete. People have so many different options from websites and podcasts and shows, but there's an endless appetite for it. Even in June, there's an endless appetite for it.
Yeah. Each visit here, we've talked more and more, spent more and more time on your writing away from ProFootballTalk.com. Just hand those over if you would, please.
There you go, sir. I expect a written report, double-spaced, watch the margins.
Well, if I did it
I want good penmanship,
if I did it like
cursive.
If I did it like I was in school, I'd have to get first the Cliff Notes version and then go from there. Let me see how you autograph this.
I just did. I couldn't think of anything good, and I didn't want to.
Oh, I thought you were going to put the word we described.
No, I didn't do that. I can't do that because I never know who's going to see it. You may have some, grandchild at some point that says, "Hey, Papa, what's this word that starts with F?"
Father of Mine and Son of Mine, currently available on Amazon, among other places where you find books.
Only Amazon. You can buy the books. The print edition is on Amazon for, I believe, $14.99. I decided only the second time in my life that I'd made a New Year's resolution that I followed. January 1 of this year, I made the ebooks for both of those, and On Our Way Home, 99 cents. I want to promote reading. You mentioned Cliff Notes. I hated reading as a kid because they made us do it. You have to read this book. I don't want to read this book. You have to read this book and write about it. I don't want to. The fact that you're telling me I have to do it makes me not want to do it. And I've read so many, I'm really restraining myself here. I don't know what your rating is for your podcast.
We don't swear.
Okay. So
Hoppy does all the time.
I'm glad that I restrained myself because I work with Chris Sims, and let me tell you, he is the master, and he will just drop an F-bomb without warning now.
Yeah.
Usually you can feel like, Mount Vesuvius is starting to rumble a little bit. He just lets it fly. It's like, dude, live on Peacock. He just lets it fly.
He does?
And then it's funny because Oh yeah. See, you're telling on yourself. You never watched the show because he does it every day, pretty much, at least once a week, I'd say. But our show is re-aired on Sky, the UK equivalent of ESPN, and we have a huge following there because there are so many unsatisfied NFL fans that don't have content, and they love our show and they love our sensibility. And I'll hear back from viewers on Sky when they fail to hit the button and the F-bomb gets through.
Yeah.
So,
that's a word. That's definitely a word. So,
hey, my position is life is rated R. And everybody talks that way at some point or another. And if you the people who act like they don't are the ones who are letting it go as soon as they get home over and over again. There's no way. There's no way. It's just and I've seen studies where two things. Number one, it is a great stress reliever.
I've seen that.
And number two, it is a sign of advanced intelligence.
Excuse me?
It's a sign of advanced intelligence if you use it smartly.
Okay. But if you use it smartly, but you will see and hear people who are in prominent positions who can't go a sentence without using it.
Right.
And then it loses its effect.
Exactly.
But a well-placed has impact.
Exactly. I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So why don't you take your... Oh, wait a minute.
So this is a fascinating topic. So you've written a short story, and it's gathering and garnering interest already.
Here's what happened. I'll tell you how I got here. Because I've been doing this 5 years now. It all started during the pandemic. When I got to this point of the calendar and we got post-draft, they had no off-season programs that year. Things really got slow.
Right.
And nobody was going anywhere. Nobody was doing anything. I had an idea that became father of mine. It was sparked by a dream that I had about my dad. And my dad, we've talked before, was a bookie in Wheeling. And I started just pulling threads of that idea from, and dreams. No dream ever makes sense, but there were at least some sensible parts of it. And I sat down one night and I started going. So fast forward through 2 agents. The agent that I hired last year shares my vision, shares my confidence that I may be onto something with this, and has some really good ideas. And he's pushing me more toward the realm of film. And I've written some screenplays. Just kind of, it's easier than writing a novel. It is.
No,
It's all dialogue driven.
I'd agree with you on that.
It's all dialogue driven. I'm serious.
Throws in.
I'm just telling. I'm telling you the story. I'm telling you the story.
He's telling the story.
So, one thing that obviously you can't begin to develop a movie if you don't have an idea, and kind of like a friendly challenge. Like, let's see how many. They call them log lines. The log line is the encapsulation. It's the premise of the movie.
Yeah.
Let's see how many you can come up with. So I started coming up with them, and I suggested one to him, and he said, "I kind of like that." He said, "I'll tell you what. Don't write it as a novel. Write it as a short story." Well, why? Why is it a short story? Well, right now, and he's got his finger on the pulse of the industry and the trends. A short story is the vehicle to get the attention of the studios. And I don't know whether it's because, 10,000 words is easier to read than 90,000, but so I did. And I didn't, I wrote it in like 3 weeks back in March, April timeframe. And I wrote it and I read through it and, I was like, here it is. I like it. I sent it to him and he's like, damn, this is good. I think I'm going to send it out. All right, send it out. And I'm so used to rejection in this space. You'll never survive in any creative field if you don't develop a very thick, hard shell where you just expect that you're going to hear no. Mm-hmm. You expect that the answer is going to be not a fit, not for us. It's so subjective. And So I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. I've been there, done that. I'll wait for the rejection emails. Like, oh, go ahead, send it out. And this was, he started sending it out 2 weeks ago. He called me last Tuesday night. And I know it's a big deal when he calls me because usually we just email each other. He called me last Tuesday night. He's like, hey, I think we got something here. And we've got 3 major studios. Major. That want to meet. So first meeting's Friday. Next one's early next week. Third one's after that. We'll see where it goes. And we'll see who else wants to come to the table.
So
this is awesome, dude.
The title of the story is The Summons. And Mike, I think this gets into also your writing because I read it. I just want to read the first 2 paragraphs because you write in very short, simple sentences, a lot of dialogue. You said, I always get nervous. Well, this is what it says. I always get nervous on the first day of trial, even when it's a slam dunk, no-brainer. 13-minute deliberation. It was worse than usual this time. I wasn't sure why. I read those sentences, and I said, I'm in. You know, you hooked me in those first 2 sentences, first couple sentences. So my question to you is, you say you sit down and you write. Did you just bang that out, or did you have to come back and revisit that? Because the first lines are critically important
absolutely.
in hooking a reader.
Yeah. In this case, that was the first thing that came out. Usually that first line, that first chapter.
Okay.
I'm working on finishing up a novel that hopefully will be available in August called Big Shield. That is a football gambling mob thing, and I just rewrote chapter 1 the other day.
Oh, okay.
It's like chapter 1 doesn't work. Chapter 1 doesn't work. I just rewrote it.
Okay.
Because you're right, that especially in a longer piece, that
short story you got to get
impression-
to it.
Short story you got to get to it. But yeah, that's a rare example of when I went back, I kept that.
Do you know the ending of your work before you start it?
No.
You don't?
No.
Really?
What I'll do is for a novel, because usually they're between 80 and 90,000 words. I'll do the first 40,000 words wherever the spirit takes me. And then after I'm halfway through, I'll figure out where I'm going from there. And I'll realize that I have just kind of coincidentally put enough things into the first half, little pieces, little things, little stray comments that can be used
Pull it through
in the back half. But for this one, and the premise is pretty simple. There's a man on trial for murder. His defense is temporary insanity by reason of demonic possession. And as the trial proceeds, the prosecutor realizes the defense may have merit. And the way that I pitched it to my agent was, defendant, temporary insanity by reason of demonic possession, mayhem ensues. So I had to figure out what the mayhem was going to be and how it was all going to wrap up. And so I knew kind of where, I knew that at some point it was going to go off the rails and it was going to get crazy and there was going to be all sorts of stuff happening, but I didn't know what, I didn't know how. And that's part of the process. You just have to trust that as you go through it one word at a time, it'll all eventually make sense. And if it doesn't, you just rewrite it. And if it doesn't, then you rewrite it again.
Those 2 guys already read it.
I knew you wouldn't have read it. And I know you're not. You say you are taking these with you to the beach. Yeah. There is no way you're going to read these.
I will.
You'll take them. You won't read them.
You will be killing mosquitoes with these before you're reading them. Actually, they would be. You could do some damage.
Here's the deal, dude.
Hey, you know what? Growing up, if my mom would have had this thing,
she'd busted your ass.
It would have been part of the arsenal.
I've got 6 to 7 hours a day under an umbrella. I'm reading both of those.
We're aware of where you're going and what you're doing. We also know that you don't read. You don't read books.
Is there foam involved in his demonic possession? Does he foam at all?
Well, you got to read it.
Yeah, you got to read it. You got to read it.
I'm just asking. Is there foam?
Here's what I think you did, not to boost your ego anymore, but you're sitting here. But you know, I'm a fan of your
I'm glad to take it. I'm glad to.
Did you?
If I'm going to leave the house, I may as well get.
I'm going to talk about you while you're not here.
Yeah.
Did you realize going into that it was a short story? Or did you think it was an excerpt of a book that was coming?
I thought, just because I got a heads up from Tony, it was a short story.
No, I didn't realize it was a short story. I'm extremely disappointed. He came in.
He wants the rest of the book.
Where's the book?
He wants me to write the rest of the book now.
Here's what I think you did well, because I'm a fan of legal thrillers. That's when I sit down to read, I like those type of books. I think you did a great job of taking something that could have sounded really hokey with the demonic possession, okay, and made it like I'm reading that going, I'll tell you, that's as believable as demonic possession can get in my mind for something that could have, I think, gone off the hokey trail. I thought that
he didn't make it a cartoon.
It was not a cartoon. It was really like,
it's dark.
Again, I read a lot in that genre, and I'm reading that going, I'm in. If this is a full book, I'm reading. That was really interesting how you did that.
Well, and I appreciate that because you never know when you're writing it. You never know how it's going to. I always write from the perspective of, and it's the same thing that brought me into my primary job. Like, I try to create what I would want to consume. And I try to always keep that barometer. Would I think this was interesting if I'm the one? You know, I said earlier, like, it's taking me months to read a book because it's like, I don't get it. What is this? It's not interesting. Nothing's happening. It's boring. It's meandering. I try to always remember that and be cognizant of that. And I try to only create, whether it's at the website, whether it's a short story, whether it's a novel, whether it's a screenplay, it's got to be something that I would say, oh, man, yeah, I'm in. I can suspend disbelief for this. I can invest my time in this.
You have a ton of dialogue. You rely a lot on dialogue.
I love dialogue. Dialogue to reveal character. Dialogue to you can do so much through dialogue. I hate when you get to the chapter in the book, the perfunctory description of the person from top of head to to pinky toe. Like, you don't need to do all that in a paragraph. All that stuff can come through over the course of telling the story through dialogue, among other things.
And again, it's a short story, so you add texture. You don't have a lot of time to add texture,
right?
But you do. And like this to me was a small thing, but it stood out to me. Let me find it here. The courthouse wasn't far from home because it's the day of the trial. The courthouse wasn't far from home. I could have walked. I often say I will, but never do. I had a good excuse this time. The sky was turning dark fast. That has a whole ominous ring to it that goes back to the very beginning. Like, you got this weird, bad feeling about this. And just that little thing, which, again, you're relying so much on dialogue, but there's just that little bit in there that adds to the texture and the foreboding of what's ahead.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And that's all intentional. And the one time that, I actually paid attention to these classes, like, I picked up, I think it was high school, because I never took anything English related or literature related, but the messages and the meanings and the things that are embedded in there. And it makes it enjoyable to reread it or to rewatch a movie. The best movies to me are the ones when you get to the end, the first thing you want to do is watch it again. Mm-hmm. And the best books are the ones where when you get to the end, like, where did I miss this? I think I know where this was. And so you just sprinkle in, and you only have 11,000 words to work with in a short story. And I went over the target. The target's 10,000, but I figured, what the hell, I'll take a liberty and make it 11,000. But yeah, you've got to do what you can with what you have to work with.
This may be one of those questions, like asking Jordan how you play basketball, though. How do you drop?
That's a great comparison.
Well, here's why. Because how do you drop those things in without really having an outline of where you're headed? How does
you have a general idea where you're going? I knew where it was going, so I knew that I wanted to create this idea that some bad stuff's going to happen to this guy today. Yeah. So, and I don't know whether that may have been, I'm sure that was in there from the beginning too, because I knew as I sat down to do it where this was all going to lead.
By the way, it's dark.
Well, yeah, that's the idea.
It's really dark.
Well, and my agent had been and has been, like, the one thing he's trying to get me to do is come up with a legal series where it's the same character in this adventure, that adventure. And that was the thing he said after he said, when I read, he said, this is the voice that I want to see in a longer form series of legal thrillers. Mm-hmm. And what I'd like to, and I've kind of been roughing out different ideas, I'd like to do a book of short stories that are just kind of like combination of legal, procedural, and the Twilight Zone, where there's something weird that happens in every case, but apparently short story compilations don't sell. So I'm only going to waste my time on things that I think are going to sell, but this idea of a legal thriller series
is home run. Yeah, home run.
By the way, and if they do make like a movie out of this, I mean, you might need extras that...
Jurors. We need jurors.
I was thinking the same thing.
I'll get you guys to be jurors.
Could you do that?
I'm going to drive a hard bargain. I mean, I'm still learning how this business works. And this is the first time I've ever had leverage. But you got 3 different companies that, like, at a certain point, you're dictating the terms, right?
So with that being said, thank you. Can we do a verbal agreement? And I know as an attorney,
I don't know what it pays.
We don't need money.
Is it like a union rate or something?
No, we don't need money. if this does go on and it does become a
you'll be jurors.
Yes.
Well, it doesn't have to be a juror. We just like to be extras in some capacity, whether that's in the jury
There are-
box.
See,
just stop. We'll take the jury. Yes, we'll take the jury. We've read the story. We'll take the role of juror.
You'll be in the
That's in
gallery.
the courtroom. We're
okay,
in.
how about in the gallery? But even then, everybody,
that's fine. That
everybody
you reference the
participates.
I'd prefer
Everybody
juror,
participates.
When you do watch this become a movie, what you'll notice in the background when they show some of the outdoor scenes is there will be a Go-Mart in the background. And at that Go-Mart, if you have
Product placement.
if you have the app, you'll go like, well, wait a second. You can get 200 bonus rewards points now on Airheads, Mentos, Snickers, M&Ms, Monster Energy, Utz potato chips, and flank steak barbecue stuff. That's 450 on those bad boys. So get your Go-Mart app and begin saving immediately on your food and your fuel. Plus, all you got to do is play a video game. You get 20 cents off a gallon of gas, which is really super good. Also, it's peak boating season at Lou Wendell Marine Sales. The selection that they have, anything to do from boats to the G3 John boats to the pontoons from Avalon or all the other accoutrements. You know, Mike, I don't know if you know this or not, but heavy accoutrements in the boating world. You got anchors, you got life preservers, you got rafts. I mean, you got those little things you got to put on the side of the boat so when you come into the dock, you don't bang it and scratch the whole thing up. There's a lot of stuff. And go to Lou Wendell Marine Sales. They happen to be the premier pontoon boat dealer in the state of West Virginia. They've been in business for 40 years. LouWendellMarineSales.com. That's LouWendellMarineSales.com. You boat at all? You boat at all? What do you mean by that?
Well, because if I fell in, I would probably drown.
Yeah.
Can you work Lou Wendell Marine boat into the movie?
If there's a pontoon in any of your future movies, we'd like to get a Lou Wendell pontoon boat in
I'll
it.
work on that.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers to the Pittsburgh Steelers. What was your takeaway over the length of the courtship, and how do you think it will work?
I believe that the courtship was protracted by design.
Really?
I think that when he visited them, and just imagine this, set the scene. It's the Friday of the NCAA tournament, the first Friday. Yeah. All day long, games are going on. A little bit of a window for the NFL teams. You're working, you're multitasking, watching some tape for the draft, but you got all the games on.
Mm-hmm.
Friday's going to be, we'll do it Thursday, we're going to do it Friday, best two sports days of the year, nonstop wall-to-wall action. Oh, Aaron Rodgers is visiting today. Change your plans. No basketball games. We're going to spend the day with Aaron Rodgers. That's the day he went, that first Friday of the NCAA men's tournament. And I joked with somebody I know up there about it. It's like, geez, yeah. I mean, can you come a different day? Like maybe Monday when there's not basketball games all day long? So I think the day he was there for more than 6 hours, there was an understanding as to what was going to happen. He had some issues in his personal life that needed to resolve. And anytime anyone has that, I fully respect that. I also think, and someone who knows him but didn't know any specifics about this, but knows him well, suggested to me a few weeks ago that he's made a calculation here. He's less of a distraction if he's not signed at all and not showing up for off-season voluntary workouts than if he's under contract and he's not showing up. Because if you're under contract and you're not showing up, even though it's voluntary, you're going to have people like me saying, what are you doing? Why aren't you committed? You're on the team and you're not going to be there. You're going to have players questioned about it constantly anytime they're available to the media.
Right.
He becomes a much bigger presence hovering over the team if he's under contract. He still was, and I think it created a lot of consternation for fans who believe that it is beneath the Steelers to behave this way. First, they give DK Metcalf a market-level contract that they've never, ever, ever, in the 52 years I've been following the Steelers, they've never given a stranger to the team a market-level contract, ever. They give up a second-round pick and $30 million a year on a 5-year deal, $35 million a year in new money, puts him like third or fourth among all receivers. He's never played it down for them before. Between that and the metaphor I used was, it's the guy who, bends the knee and holds the box and pops it open, and he's waiting, and he's waiting, and he's waiting, and he's committed to stay there until he gets an answer. And that's what the Steelers were from the perspective of their fans. And I think it upset a lot of their fans, and I think there are fans that are skeptical about Aaron Rodgers. Cam Hayward put it best early on. You either want to be a Steeler or you don't. And I think it just rubbed a lot of Steelers fans the wrong way. And he's going to have to find a way to undo some of that. Now, throwing 4 touchdown passes against the Jets week 1, that will go a long way toward
Take
doing
care of
it.
that,
It puts
yeah.
more pressure on him, though. That right out of the gates. Think about the pressure that's on him. He's got to prove the Steelers right and the Jets wrong, because the Jets could have had him, and he wanted to stay, and they said, no, thank you. So in one fell swoop, he's either going to, hit both or fail both. And we know what'll happen. That one game, even though there's 16 after that, that one game becomes the biggest thing you can imagine, and there's going to be so much of an overreaction to that first game. And I wish that game wasn't at 1 o'clock Eastern. I wish that not that Baltimore-Buffalo is a bad game for Sunday night, but the NFL has said, Mike North, who does the scheduling, he said that if they had known that Aaron Rodgers was going to Pittsburgh, that would not have been a 1 o'clock game.
Are they better off, though, the Steelers,
Yes. Yeah.
by having him?
Well, look at what they've had since Ben Roethlisberger retired. And even Roethlisberger's last year, I believe they didn't want him to come back his last year. I believe that they made him a financial offer that they thought was high enough that it wasn't a sign of disrespect, but low enough that he wouldn't take it. And I think they were surprised when he took it. So they had that one extra year with Ben Roethlisberger they didn't expect. And it was okay. It wasn't great. 2020 was his last really good year. But then you got Kenny Pickett in 22, and it started with Mitch Trubisky and then went to Pickett. That didn't work out. 23 with Pickett. That didn't work out. 24 with Justin Fields and then Russell Wilson. That didn't work out. And now Mason Rudolph, who was 3-0 late in the regular season when they soft benched Kenny Pickett. He had an ankle injury and he was healed. And it's like, that's fine. We're good. Yeah, you're not healed. We'll stick with Mason Rudolph. And Mason Rudolph was respectable in a playoff loss to the Bills. Still, Mason Rudolph and Aaron Rodgers are in two different galaxies. And they're much better off with Aaron Rodgers. They will be better with Aaron Rodgers.
But I defer to you. I would just wonder when was the last time Rodgers had the kind of season that Steeler fans would expect from their starting quarterback? And number one. And number two, the Steelers, this all feels very anti-Steelerish to me.
Yes. Everything about this offseason.
Right.
It speaks to a desperation that I believe the organization has to win a playoff game. It's been 9 years.
Okay.
As of this year. Their last postseason win was the divisional round in Kansas City, 2016 season, early January 2017. Remember, the game was supposed to be at 1 o'clock. There was an ice storm. It ended up being a night game on NBC that evening. That's the last time the Steelers won a playoff game, and that sparked the drafting of Patrick Mahomes by the Chiefs because they realized Alex Smith is only going to take us so far. So desperation manifests itself in a bunch of different ways. For the Chiefs, it was, we got to go get Patrick Mahomes. For the Steelers, it's, we got to get Aaron Rodgers. And I think the next move is, we got to get ourselves in position to get a young quarterback who we don't whiff on. They whiffed on Kenny Pickett. They loved him. They knew him. He just doesn't have the objective skills. There's nothing he does that's special. Rodgers, what he does, and all the accounts that you'll hear about Rodgers over the years, he throws the ball in a way that creates a sound that people haven't heard before. There's a velocity, there's an intensity, there's just something about it, and it's flick of the wrist. He doesn't have to put his full body into it, which would be harder for him to do at 41. When you have the arm that he has, you can be dramatically better than what they're used to. Okay. He may not be Ben Roethlisberger in his prime, but you don't have to be better than what the Steelers have had post-Roethlisberger. That's the key. I mean, they wanted nothing to do with Russell Wilson. They were willing to keep Justin Fields at the right number, but he got $20 million a year, which used to be like top of the market for an NFL quarterback. Now $20 million is nothing. Yeah. But that's fair because the teams are making a hell of a lot more than they were when $20 million a year was a lot for a quarterback. But this is going to be an upgrade for them. If he stays healthy, if it all clicks, that you've just got these, there are things about Aaron Rodgers that could create issues with teammates. But I look at Mike Tomlin, who has managed to keep far more difficult players in line. Mm-hmm. I think Tomlin knows how to get Aaron Rodgers to say and do whatever he needs to say and do to make it work. Mm-hmm. I think they're committed to making it work this year. And if they don't win a playoff game this year, and I think that's the litmus test. If they win a playoff game, it's a success. If they don't win a playoff game, why'd you do all this? Same result we've had every year for however long now. We can't win a playoff game, 9 years. So I think that's the key. And I think they will be better. I just don't know whether they win a playoff game. Look at the competition in the conference. I don't know that they win a playoff game.
Is that an impetus to change Tomlin and move on from him if there's no playoff win this year?
I was talking to somebody about that recently who isn't with the team but has close ties to the team. And the guy that I said that to started laughing. He said they're never getting rid of Tomlin because they know that Tomlin has gone a long way toward making a mediocre roster competitive over the years. Their players across the board. I mean, they've got some great players. T.J. Watt. They've had Cam Hayward. They've had some high-end talent, but they haven't had the collective level of skill that other teams have, and they still find a way to the right side of 500, and that's Tomlin. And I still think, even after the past couple of years where it seems like the criticism of Tomlin has intensified, I still think if Tomlin would get fired, there would be teams lining up to hire him. In fact, teams that otherwise would be happy with the coach they have would fire that coach if they thought they could get Tomlin.
Agree.
If, hypothetical here, if you walked into a Tudor's Biscuit World and there's 2 cash registers, counter here, cash register. You walk in, Roger Goodell walks in. There's no one else in the Tudor's Biscuit. What is the conversation between the two of you?
Which biscuit are you getting?
Does he talk to you?
How are you? I'm fine. How are you doing? I'm good.
Good.
That's it.
No, I think we would have a nice little conversation. It was just the two of us. I've spent time with him before. I mean, I think at some level, I'd like to think, even though I understand nobody likes being criticized, nobody likes being called out. Everybody would prefer being praised. Like, this is a lot more enjoyable today having you guys say good things about my fiction than if you were telling me how bad it is, right? But I think they understand that I spend and have spent for almost a quarter century now most of my waking hours promoting their product and causing people to engage with their product. And I have emails that I could compile and send to them from hundreds of people who will tell us that they follow and enjoy football more because they watch PFT Live. And they feel invested in the game more because they enjoy the conversations we have about it. It helps them understand it more, especially the UK people, that they are even more interested. So I'd like to think at some level, I don't want a fruit basket. I don't want booze. I don't want bread. At some point, it would just be nice to hear thank you once in a while from them. Yeah. And I don't know that that's ever going to happen. They're very inclined to, if there's something I say they don't like, complain to NBC about it. And NBC, to their credit, and I've told you guys this before, NBC has always had my back and always supported me. And they'll, from time to time, tell me just so I'm aware. I think a lot of times they don't even bother to tell me because they don't want it to affect me. But, I think that at some level he understands, even though I can be a thorn in his side and a pain in his ass, that there is a net positive that comes from what we do. So, I'd let him buy my biscuit if he wanted to.
That'd be nice.
Well, right now at Tudor's, what they're doing is they're having a contest. They're giving away $100 each week, and all you have to do is go vote on what you would like to see them sell in their merch this coming fall. Just go to votetudorsmerch.com. That's votetudorsmerch.com, and you just say, hey, I like that hat, I like this shirt, I'd like to see you guys sell this, sell that, and you put yourself into the contest, and each week they give away $100 in Tudor gift cards, which would buy Goodell and Florio a lot of Tudor's biscuits.
I got an idea that someone can steal and submit. Make a biscuit hat like the cheese head.
That is a good idea.
Tudor's biscuit hat.
Wear them to the WVU games.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned the UK a couple
Hoppy against the rain.
You mentioned the UK a couple of times. Let's say the book thing goes, and you have continued success with the book. Why don't you go overseas and just kind of have a live thing? Meet Mike, do a meet and greet over in the UK. Wouldn't be bad for a kid from Wheeling.
We've been talking about that for a few years now. When the schedule came out and the Vikings have consecutive games, because I ended up becoming a Vikings fan as a kid, and I'm open about that because I think you're capable of doing this job objectively while also acknowledging that there's a team that you rooted for as a kid. I'm at the point now where I really don't care. My son is far more invested than I am, and I have to hear it all the time, which is fine. I'm glad he's all in, although I feel bad for him because he'll say at times, why did you have to pick that team? It's like, sorry. But they play the Steelers October 5 and the Browns October 12. First game in Ireland, second game in London. And we talked about maybe trying to do it then. The problem is I'd want to do it with Chris Sims, and he works college football as well now, so he wouldn't be able to leave then. It's something we'd have to do in the off season.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it. We are going to do it. We're going to go over there for a week, and we're going to do the tour of the UK and have events. And like when we have events here, there will be people there from the UK.
Wow.
Who are there for the Super Bowl or whatever, because we usually do something Super Bowl week. We did something at the casino in Las Vegas. We did something at, what's the place? How do I forget that? Pat O'Brien's in New Orleans, out in the courtyard, the home of the Hurricane. We did something there this year. And people from the UK.
UK comes
yeah,
to see
UK comes. UK is all in.
Well, we had the same thing recently. Went to the motocross event there at High Point over in Mount Morris. Hoppy raced. Well, he rode, and he had his own shirt on. It was really nice, and he did that, and people were thrilled. He also led the entire group on Friday as the event was opening in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, wow.
He did the Pledge of Allegiance. It was very well done.
We had a great event there at motocross, and Tony and I learned a lot about motocross, which has its own identity and a tremendous following. It doesn't get a lot. I think NBC is in on motocross.
Peacock.
Yeah,
big.
Peacock.
Yes.
Peacock.
Peacock, very big.
But
Some synergy there for you.
It has a huge following, and there's big money, especially for the top people. Real money.
They had an event at
Mount Morris.
but the Peacock thing, they did they were at Acrisure, the Heinz Field.
Oh yeah, they do that. They do all this.
It's amazing what they do to transform the venue.
Oh yeah,
with the hills and the yeah.
they got two brothers we interviewed while we were there. One made approximately average. One made $10 million a year. The other one made $6 million a year.
Wow,
that's not bad.
Wow.
I mean,
They just tell you that? They just
no. They didn't. No, we got that.
We had to do some reporting.
yeah. Okay.
Circuitous tertiary route.
Speaking of getting information, and obviously would not ask you to reveal your sources, but are your best sources, are they agents? Are they assistant coaches? Are they people in the organization? Are they within the league? Who are your best sources? And I realize you probably use all, but what are your best?
Yeah, it's all, and it's more relationship driven. The people I've known the longest, the people I trust, the people who I know that what they tell me something.
Mm-hmm.
Can I interrupt you
I
for
can
1
take it to the
second?
bank.
These mics that we've told
sorry.
you, yeah, they're unidirectional. They're not the right microphones for this studio, but
So it's more driven by I know who I can believe.
Okay.
I have one person I've known for a long time, and he thinks it's okay to be, 3 out of 4. This isn't baseball. Well, I got about 1,000, or I'm going to look like an idiot. Like, why didn't you use that thing I told you? I ended up being right. It's like, because I couldn't confirm it. And I'm not going to use it just because you tell me, because one of these days you're going to be wrong. And when he is wrong, I make sure he knows about it. Because, like, this is why I can't. I have to be sure it's right before I do it. And so I know the people I can turn to. And I know, like, for different angles and different stories and different things I'm pursuing, I know who to go to. I never like to ask people with a team about their own team. Mm-hmm. I just think that's bad form, and I don't want to put them in a tough spot.
Sure.
Sometimes I will. It's like, hey, I got no choice here. I need to know what's going on, especially when it's NBC driven, and this is what we're trying to put together for Football Night in America. I'm more willing to say, hey, I need to know. Is there going to be a coaching change? They expect me to go on the air and speak intelligently about this. What can I say? And like the people I know who are in position to give me things, I always do trust them. But 25 years, I'd like to think, but I may be wrong. I have a decent barometer of what's true and what's not true, and when I can rely on someone and when I can't. But yeah, at this point, there's too much to lose, and incrementally not enough to gain to take a swing and a miss on something significant.
Yeah.
What's your final takeaway on the incredible draft story regarding Shadur Sanders?
Generally speaking, I have an aversion to any of the reporting about a draft prospect pre-draft, because it is a game of multi-dimensional chess. And a rule of thumb that I learned from someone years ago that is 100% true. Teams that really like a guy, and let's focus on round 1. There's a top prospect in round 1. We're picking 20th. We love this guy. Let's see if we can get him to fall. How can we get him to fall? We can start spreading some stuff about him that will make him fall. And there's a Machiavellian quality to it where we want this guy. It's a game that we're playing. We want this guy to be on the board at number 20. So anytime I see, and we see a proliferation of it prior to the draft, the anonymous scout. I don't want to hear what the anonymous scout thinks because I need to know who the anonymous scout is, because I'm only believing the anonymous scout if his or her team has no stake, no interest, no anything in this person. And the flip side is if a team really doesn't like someone, and Chris Sims told this story on PFT Live this year when he spent a year with the Patriots. John Robinson, who would go on to be the GM of the Titans, was working in the front office there. And he told the low-level scouts, hey, if you're hanging out with your buddies and this guy's name comes up, talk him up. We want someone to take him before we pick. Because that's a flip side. If you don't like a guy, he's awesome. Please let somebody else take him and push down the board the guys we want. So that made me just concerned that somebody was trashing Shadur Sanders in the hopes of getting Shadur Sanders low in round 1. After the fact, when he ends up all the way in round 5 and everybody's had multiple shots at him, it's clear it was something more than just, playing the board and trying to get a guy at a lower spot. So I started then to ask people who would be in a position to know what happened. And then it's different to me because the game's over then. This is just let's rebuild this and figure out why it went the way it did. My understanding is Shadur Sanders approached the draft process as if he was being recruited, not as if he was being interviewed. And when you come to the table with the attitude of you need to be catering to me, you need to be making me want you, that's far different from the guys who are all in, putting in the time, showing up for meetings where they've been given a package of plays ahead of time and expected to know them, and they get up on the whiteboard and they show what they've mastered. That's what the teams expect, unless you are an off-the-charts incredible talent. And this is where I think his dad's experience hurt him, because his dad was that kind of an all-time
generational talent. Yeah.
And the great Deion Sanders story from 1989, when he went in to meet with the Giants, and he's told this story on the record. He went to meet with the Giants, and they dropped this binder in front of him that was this lengthy test that they had every prospect take. And he looked at it and he said, when do you pick? And they said, we picked 18th. I'll be gone by then. I don't have time for this. And he got up and left. If you're Deion Sanders, you can do that. If you're everybody else, you can't do that because you're still going to get taken in the top 5. Think about that 1989 draft. I mean, 4 Hall of Famers in the top 5 picks. Troy Aikman, Barry Sanders, Derek Thomas, and Deion Sanders in the top. And Tony Manders was the only bust in that top 5. But, you're still going to be taken high, and you're going to have a great career because you just physically – you are so good that they won't care about that. But for a quarterback position especially, in today's NFL where so much time and effort is put in by the quarterback and you have to be plugged in and locked in and you have to be the guy that sets the tone and shows up early and stays late and is working and working and working and mastering the offense and always ahead of the defense and just committed to it. If you show an attitude of, hey, this is a benefit for you, not for me. I'm going to go through the motions here. And I don't know how bad it was, but someone who was looking for a quarterback, who had reason to carefully scout all the quarterbacks, said he acted as if he was being recruited, not interviewed.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Makes me go like, okay, I get that, because that kind of falls in line with what you had heard.
And now the Browns, the saying goes, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. If you have 5 quarterbacks, you're the Browns.
That's where,
because what are they going to do?
That's where quarterbacks go to die. Is the Browns.
And how do you get these guys right? They're putting out the idea now that they may keep 4 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster all the way through the season, which I think is just aimed at trying to trade one of them. I think they'd love to trade Kenny Pickett. I think they'd love to go into the season with Joe Flacco as the starter, and they work on getting Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders ready, and one of those two, and maybe both will play at some point this year, and that's the competition to see who becomes the guy over the long haul. But their history tells us they'll find a way to screw it up.
Absolutely.
Because they have over and over and over again.
One thing, they're consistent.
Yeah.
What do you think? I'm sorry.
I was going to say, what's your take on Rich Rod coming back?
Didn't we do this?
We did it on Sports Line.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Asked and answered.
Never mind.
No.
Move on.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Look, hey, I'm wearing the colors, right? I'm supportive. At the end of the day, we got to come together and we got to try to make it work. Will it work? It's a different era than it was 20 years ago. Everything is different. Mm-hmm. And will he be able to attract, recruit, and retain? That's the problem. Retaining the talented players, because now we're in this age where you have a star player who develops. Do you really think Pat White would have been here 4 years in this climate?
Would have been hard.
Do you think Steve Slayton would have been here his full career?
Would have been
in
hard.
this climate? Do you think the Mage would have been here in this climate?
No, would have been different.
Now, I know that's pre-Rodriguez,
so
but that's the idea.
Player retention is going to become the biggest thing.
Star player, this is great. He's gone. That's what we have to accept. Unless, and this is such a conflict for me because I believe that the universities and the NCAA should be required to clean up their own mess. Their current mess is the product of years of corruption where they used antitrust violations. I don't want to get you in trouble, but I'm speaking my mind.
Dude, go.
Well, but this is the reality because I know there may be people at WVU that don't want to hear this, but it's years of corruption. They came together with a system that not only denied direct payment to the players, but denied them the opportunity to use their names, their fame, to make anything. They couldn't make a dime for decades.
Amen.
And now the dam is broken, and they want Congress to save their ass. And my position is, hey, why? Why does the federal government need to bail out college football? You made this mess. You clean it up. What they don't want to do, we talked about the CBA earlier. They don't want to have a union. They want to have the benefits of having a union because for the NFL is able to have salary cap and all the rules that apply to player movement because they're in what's called a multi-employer bargaining unit. So they get an antitrust exemption that allows them to make a mass set of rules that covers all 32 teams, even though they are 32 independent businesses, just like the 100-plus college universities are independent businesses. But they don't want to have a union. You know why they don't have a union? Because they want those guys, not just here, everywhere. How much time do they get off? They're working out all year long.
Nominal.
Beat the hell out of them in pads all year long. The moment you have a union, whoa, wait a minute. We got to do something about these practice rules. You got these guys in full pads, 2-a-days. You've got them doing conditioning, voluntary conditioning, not voluntary conditioning all the time. They don't get time. There would be so many rules, work rules that the schools would have to deal with that would make it harder, in the opinion of the coaches, it's harder to get my team ready. So they don't want a union because they don't want to lose the ability to put the thumb on the team and have them do as much as they want them to.
They want a hybrid. They want a collective bargaining agreement with a hybrid.
They want to be able to impose rules on the players without having rules imposed on the schools.
Yeah.
And they're hoping that the Congress will give them that, and Congress might.
Yeah.
So, but all that said, I remain optimistic.
There you go.
There's your answer.
And we'll see what happens.
He remains
True
optimistic.
fan. Hopeful.
I think he...
Why are we playing at Ohio University? I was talking to somebody about that the other day.
What's it always about?
But how much money is Ohio University paying?
Go ahead, explain.
Because
it's a lot of biscuits.
The rates for Ohio U's of the world to come in have gotten so exorbitant and so outrageous that in order to bring that back down, you've got to give something back. Instead of paying that rate for Ohio only to come here, you throw a game back.
Is it a 2 and 3 or 3 and 4?
Yeah,
2
so
for
2
1.
for 1, and that limits. Now you're not just paying exorbitant
How
prices.
big is their stadium?
38,000-ish.
It's going to be an interesting ticket.
Oh, yeah. People will eat those things up.
Yeah.
People will buy their season tickets and just go to the game.
Yeah. My son's already planning it. I got him working for me now, but he was up in Connecticut last season, but he's going to be here this year, and he's already planning the Pitt game and Ohio University, and he's got his list of all the games he wants to get to.
Does your son tell you that you go too fast, or you're a little bit high strung, that you could back it down a little bit?
No.
He doesn't.
No.
And mine do.
I'm just pumping up his inheritance. Why would he?
My kids do.
I mean, it's a double whammy for him. Number one, it's more money for him, and number two, I'll probably die sooner.
Oh, jeez.
Keep going, Dad.
Morbid humor is also a sign of high intelligence.
Should have just ended that
Profanity, and
Boy,
morbid humor.
Florio, you're checking a lot of boxes over there for high intelligence.
No, but I'm trying to show him because, in this day and age, and there's so much focus on and criticism of the Nepo baby, right?
Right.
And he's very, very sensitive to that. And it's like, dude, like, I built a business and I'm going to die one day and you're going to have to figure out what to do with it. That's not nepotism. That's fact. Like, if we had a pizza shop, you'd have to be ready to run the pizza shop. If we had dry cleaner, you had to be ready. If I had a car lot, you got to be ready to, like, this is a family business.
If you had a Tutors, if you had
whatever
Lou
it
Randall
is,
Marine
exactly.
Sales.
You got to be ready to do it. It's not nepotism. It's just reality. And so he's getting there. And I'm trying to show him the ropes and trying to instill the same work ethic in him that, he didn't have a grade school football coach who planted his foot into his ass on a regular basis to create that same impetus.
No, I get it.
My son got to start in this business because of you. Right, Tony?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
I called him. I said, hey, this college sports football, collegefootballtalk.com, you got any internships? And he goes, yeah, what do you got? I gave him Ben. He took care of it. John, what's the gentleman's name? John Taylor? John Smith?
John Taylor.
Yeah. That Ben worked for.
Lives in West Virginia now.
Oh, does he really?
Yeah, he moved to like Clarksburg or
Glenville,
Weston.
down near Glenville.
That's freaking wild. And so that started Ben.
Yeah.
Now Ben's at CBS
And
Sports.
thank you for telling that story about how easy it is to contact me and get someone an internship. Thank you. I really appreciate you telling that story.
I thought we were saying something nice about you.
No, well, I appreciate that part of it. What I don't appreciate in advance is that I'll hear from everyone I know, hey.
Well, here's the good news.
Hey.
Here's the good news. You don't have college football talk.
That's true. It's gone.
Anymore.
I'm sorry. It's gone.
Hockey's gone. The only thing that lasted was how many people work at Pro Football
We've
now?
got 4 in addition to me and my son.
So try this. Just say
$5.5.
somebody contacts you. Well, I've talked to NBC. They're not doing
That's the reality. NBC does all the hiring. I get the best of both worlds. They pay us a fee to license our content, but they provide the staffing. They pay the employees. They handle all the expenses. I have one of the rare businesses in the world that is all revenue and hardly any expense.
What?
Well done.
Here's what I like. But going back to what you said earlier.
That's a good business model.
So look, with that deal that he has, he quote unquote made it, right? But your passion, like you just said, hey, before I came in today, I cut podcasts, I did this, I did that this week to keep the content. Like he could just go like, I don't care. I'm getting my money, I'm good. But you still have that owner's absolutely burning flame within you to keep that thing going to where you started it.
Well, and ultimately, I know this sounds hokey, but when you're serving an audience and they expect it, you've got to be shoveling coal into the furnace.
We call that feeding the beast.
You have to keep doing it. And I mentioned earlier the emails I've gotten from people who enjoy football more because of what they get from our content. I get emails from people, and it's hard for me to even say it because it makes me emotional, but people who are going through some really tough times in their life, personal issues. And I'm sure you guys hear this too, because we become part of their routine.
Yeah, they know you.
And it is the shelter in the storm for a couple of hours every morning. And I get those all the time, and I'll send them to my wife. And my wife's like, "Oh, you should send him a book." It's like, I can't buy these books, ain't free. Like, oh, you should send him a book. Oh, that's nice. You should send him a book. Hey, send him a book. Send him a book. It's like I'm trying to make. Like this is supposed to be a profit center at some point.
Yeah, you're charging 99 cents for the book. Yeah, fine.
But yeah, I send them the hard copy, and and so it's that part of it too. Like, just yesterday and the day before, I wasn't able to do the PFTPM podcast.
Right.
And I mean, hey, what's going on here? I thought you didn't take any days off. Hey, where's my PFTPM podcast? So part of it for me now is just you have a relationship with your audience and you feel indebted to them. They've helped get me to the point where I am now. I owe it to them to keep going as long as I can.
Will you ever retire?
No. I came to terms. I turned 60 10 days ago. And at some point in the run up to that, the epiphany was, I'm never going to stop doing what I do. I'm just going to keep doing it until I drop dead.
You're Italian.
Yeah.
Italians don't retire. I mean,
what else?
You just retired.
What else would I?
I didn't.
What else would I do?
Semi-retired.
No, I didn't. Why would you say that?
Well, because you made the formal announcement.
I stopped doing my talk show at night.
Didn't he do the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's having a horrible time in it. He can't. I mean, he keeps wandering around the frickin' building, brings his frickin' luncheon. People say, you don't have an office here, go away. It's sad to see it.
I just know so many people have jobs that they hate. And I had jobs that, like, I didn't hate practicing law, but man, it was stressful. And it was, you know, you're fighting with people all the time. And you're constantly worried, like, am I going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time? And it's somebody else's interest, not mine. I move on to the next case. For this person, this is their only shot at the justice system. This is their only experience with it. Are they going to have a good experience, bad experience? Am I going to carry the day? Am I going to screw it? Like, that just wears on you. And to have a job that doesn't feel like work, that is only stressful on those 18 days of the NFL regular season Sunday when I'm expected to synthesize 10 games of football into the sound bites and the hits in Football Night in America. I mean, that's stressful because there's a lot that goes into that. And it's a, you know, it's a high wire with no net. So other than that, every day's a good day. So what else would I do?
There you go, Hop. There's your answer.
I don't
know why you had to retire. Florio's not retiring. I'm not retiring. Hoppy
Brad's
left.
not retiring.
Brad's not.
I'm semi-retired.
Oh, okay. That's what you want to say it is. Sure. It's been a good visit.
I'm here, aren't I?
Yeah, you're here. It's been a good visit.
My God, we're doing this a long time. I just looked at the clock. I haven't looked at the clock. It's been a great conversation because it's the first time I've looked at the clock.
$1:26.
That's pretty long.
Do you take a lot of hate on your message boards and stuff like that? You still get people take shots at you?
We used to have comments on the website, and we got rid of them a couple of years ago because it's just so
it's counterproductive.
It's so hard
to
police it. And then you get people who get indignant. Oh, what about my First Amendment rights? It's like, I'm not required to give you a platform to spew your hate. Go do it somewhere else.
That isn't the First Amendment. That's not what
right,
the First
exactly.
Amendment is.
And I remember when we first had comments, my wife was like, do you see what they say about you? And I tell her, it's fine. That passion that they have to call me bad names is the passion that brings them to the website every day. So we dealt with it for a long time, and then it just got to the point where it was just too much. You know, the discourse took a turn that I wasn't comfortable with. So if you want to call me whatever you want to call me, do it on social media. And they do. And if that's the worst that I got to deal with, you know, when you practice law and you're litigating, half the people you deal with, in theory, love you, and the other half of the people you deal with hate you.
Right.
So I can deal with 50%. I'm accustomed to a 50% hate load.
Yeah, I'm good. I get it.
We like you. We're 100% here.
We're Mike Florio fans. Give it up. Three Guys Before the Game brought to us by Jan Dills, attorneys at law. They won't take no for an answer. By Comax Business System, keeping West Virginia's business data safe, secure, and efficient for 25 years. By Gomart, get a Gomart rewards card and immediately begin saving on food and fuel. Go to gomart.com for details or just download the app. By Lou Wendell Marine Sales in St. Albans, they sell family fun. Visit LouWendellMarineSales.com. And by Tudor's Biscuit World. Start your day the Mike Florio way with a Tudor's Biscuit. He'll get 2. He takes 2.
Soon to be in a movie near you.
Yeah.
A theater near you.
Yeah. Enjoy that bread.
Oh, I can't wait. I'll probably start on it on the drive
way
home.
Yeah. We're out. Thanks for being with us. Thanks to producer Jake. See y'all.